Welcome, fellow travelers, to the Never Ending Adventure Podcast, an Adventure Time podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, as always. You know me, your best buddy, Russell Tyndall. And with me, as always, is one of my best buddies,
DJ Nettie P. I don't know. I don't want to copy a James Baxter for my own thing. You know,
you don't want to steal James Baxter's thing. I think that's kind of what this whole episode's about: stealing James Baxter's thing. If you ask me, man.
That's what gets into my deep thoughts later on that we'll get into is a stealing aspect. So I don't, I don't want to dive right in there because this is, obviously this is a first of all, fantastic episode.
Yes,
and I think it's just going to be a crowd favorite. I think it's going to be. I don't know if it makes it in my season 5 top 5 just because we have so much left to talk about, but it's definitely different than Princess Potluck, which we reviewed last week, which we kind of saw was a redefined version of something they had an idea from season 1. And this feels like, again, just like a good organic Adventure Time episode. Just Finn and Jake doing a fun little side mission, you take care of their day, just going around Candy Kingdom.
Is this a Seinfeld episode? Is this an episode about nothing? Because I feel like we kind of just watched an episode, and there's a lot to take from this. Don't get me wrong. We're gonna have a great conversation.
There's a lot to take
this
from
is
it.
Season 5, episode. I have W written down. Episode 19, W19. James Baxter the horse, or as I like to refer to him as Rizz King Horse Lord, and the first of his name, Sir James Baxter.
I think I need to make a note of this, that Rizz King Horse Lord needs to be the name of this episode. So I'm going to put that as the name of this episode.
Rizz King Horse Lord. I'll just say this at the beginning of this because I don't know where we're going with James Baxter. I like him. I don't want James Baxter to take any turns. I don't want the Lich to be involved with James Baxter at all. I want only for James Baxter to be this wonderful positive energy that he brings to the land of Ooh for all time.
Yes.
And he can live forever in my mind. I think he's up there with Glop. He's like an entity that will never go away.
No, I think you'll learn more. There's one episode later that gets a little bit more into James Baxter. Just it's not like something that changes canonically or gets into like a Glob storyline or anything like that. Okay. But you see kind of like, okay, the horse on a beach ball, that's all we know right now. And it's really cool and organic and fun. And then there's you get a little bit of backstory later on, and it makes it a lot more of a relatable character. It makes it a lot more makes sense, and it expands on that, but I'm not going to spoil that for you either. Yeah. I want that to come up organically.
Here's the thing. He has a lot going for him, and I think part of this episode is going to be breaking down what is charisma and why is it that he is the one that has this awesome ability, and what is his special thing, because Finn and Jake are trying this whole episode to discover the thing so that they can go around and make people happy. Is his thing just that he's a good looking horse? Because every other horse we've seen up to this episode in Adventure Time have been but ugly, dude.
Yeah, well,
I've hated the horses.
It's still kind of funny because I do think that, we have the reference to Ice King disguising himself as a horse. We have the reference to Jake can't mold himself into a horse. That's one of the things he can't nail down, is that he can't stretch into a perfect horse figure. And honestly, James Baxter is a horse. That's the thing. There is no disguise.
Is a horse. Yeah.
And so this is what Adventure Time canon horses are shaped like. But it's kind of funny to me. It's just kind of
a peanut. They got a peanut body.
Yeah, it's like a peanut butt. On the lower half is very rounded per se.
Yeah. So it's the best looking horse in the show so far. Yes. I was like, am I getting weirded out by his teeth? And I'm not at all. The teeth feel natural. Everything about him feels good. James Baxter, a horse on a beach ball. What I call him, Rizz King Horse Lord. Truly the lovely of this episode.
You can't not have James Baxter be your lovely. So that's going to be the ultimate The ultimate sugar baby is
too quick.
James Baxter.
Way too quick in this episode. We're 4 minutes in and we're already dropping our lovely, but it's so obvious.
Yeah, it's
so
obvious. Well, let me expound upon, because I know you didn't purposely didn't look up as many factoids, but
nothing.
We ended. I think we ended Princess Potluck, and we mentioned it last week that there at the end of the episode, the animations during the credit scene were like the pencil drawings of James Baxter. Then you see as the title card in this one, James Baxter drawing himself. And James Baxter is actually the name of the animator and voice actor of James Baxter. But he was actually, the really cool thing, I think basically Penn Ward and the animators were fans of James Baxter. So the real animator, James Baxter, is a British character animator. He was first known for his work in several Walt Disney Animation Studios films, including Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Beauty and the Beast, Rafiki in The Lion King, Quasimodo in The Hunchback. So he's this really big time animator coming out of the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah. After Hunchback of Notre Dame, Baxter moved to DreamWorks Animation, did Prince of Egypt, Road to El Dorado, Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. I guess that's the second Spirit movie. Shrek 2 and Madagascar. And I'm like, these are all staple movies of my childhood.
Movies, dude.
James Baxter has wildly been a part of my personal life in terms of all these movies I've watched.
Dude, James Baxter is a fake name too. I'm sorry, but there's something about who is this guy? He's mythical. James Baxter, the animator, is also mythical.
Yeah, I'm about to say, well, and then in 2007, he became the head of his own studio, James Baxter Animation in Pasadena, California, where he has directed the animation for the 2007 film Enchanted and the opening credits for Kung Fu Panda. In 2008, he closed the studio and returned to DreamWorks. While at DreamWorks, he worked on Monsters vs. Aliens, How to Train Your Dragons, and The Croods, and then he left DreamWorks and went over to work at Netflix. So, dude, this guy's been all over the place since literally Who Framed Roger Rabbit was mid 80s, I think. And that's I just think a wild rap sheet for an animator for sure.
I'm very impressed. I feel like in a dream world, I would love to have a career one day that looks back. You can look back on it and see all these cool things. That is phenomenal. I think, it's interesting because I think this episode is going to have us talking about celebrities a little bit. Going to be talking about James Baxter as people who have something about them. There's so many different elements of charisma. But let's just take a step back because we really hopped right into this episode. And I do want to touch on the beginning of this episode. James Baxter, he lightens up the mood, the room for one of our best good boys.
Bimo.
Bimo is a surrogate mother in this episode at the beginning. He's got a little red Solo cup with an egg in it and just singing a really odd song about how he was impregnated by an electric presence that just wanted Bimo's perfect body. And therefore he has an egg that is the human incarnation of a baby.
Solo cup, yeah. That is the womb cup. Is just the egg in a Solo cup, which is phenomenal. I love Bimo's fun, I kind of semi made up universes, but I also see this is really cool. Again, I tied the connection back to Bimo Lost with this one, that Bimo really wanted the baby to be him and Bubbles' baby, and he's caring. And I think it just stems on Bimo again, just being unique and special and having this innate desire to care for things. So I just like that as a cold open, very short part of the episode, but kind of very
short part of the episode. There's a butterfly that knocks the egg out of his hands. And I got to ask, Ned, what is up with butterflies in Adventure Time, dude? We got butterflies with guns, butterflies knocking eggs out of hand. They're rascally. There's something rascally.
And there's one big moment butterfly happening later down the road. I can't remember if it's in season 5 or 6, but I won't go into that.
Butterfree, right? He has to leave Ash catch him, and it makes you cry. Is it one of those moments?
Not necessarily that
Does he fall in love with a pink butterfly that isn't a shiny? What the heck? I don't. Anyways, I'm moving on.
That's a little bit more in the reincarnation mentality.
Okay.
So that's butterflies suck so far in this universe.
Well, you've got what is almost a tops for me. Definitely a very funny moment at the beginning too. Jake for some reason thinks the way he's going to cheer Bimo up is by wrapping his butt cheeks around Finn's face, and to be honest, I think I'm so scarred from freshman year of college, and I don't know if this is the reason why I am or why I got pink eye twice in college, but
I don't know where you're going with this, but this doesn't
I got
sound
pink eye twice.
like it's a good story.
I got pink eye twice freshman year of college. I have no idea how. That was the only time in my life I've ever gotten it.
Because the bathrooms were nasty, dude.
Probably so, but I know you can, like, I hear pink eye from, like, I don't know. Something about Jake, like, wrapping his butt cheeks around Finn's face just feels like that is pink eye waiting to happen. I feel like
absolutely
you can get pink eye from someone farting in your face. I don't know. I don't really know. That's not what happened to me freshman year of college. I think it was just all the germs everywhere, the hand scanners. There's so many different reasons
hand
for
scanners, shared bathroom spaces, shared living space. Like, there's just probably nothing clean.
The weekly rub your eyes with somebody else's eye that we used to do, like weird stuff.
Oh,
weird stuff.
Just sicknesses in college that spread that are. But yeah, but directly to the face is definitely a pink eye waiting to happen.
So I just wanted to take a moment and note that I thought that was a funny moment that also kind of gave me like a little bit of like PTSD. I was like, oh, dude, don't get pink eye. It's not worth it. Not a good joke.
I know, but
regardless.
That leads us into our introduction to James Baxter. And actually, a lot of what takes place in this episode is in the Grass Kingdom, like where Finn and Jake live. So I guess, James Baxter is probably a resident of the Grass Kingdom and just kind of vibes all day. I think it's probably important to note, too, I don't think James Baxter is appearing like specifically seeking out people to make them happier. I think he just like naturally goes about his way. Like he's just vibing, doing his own thing, and people like naturally gravitate towards him a little bit. You know what I mean?
He does look for opportunities to cheer people up, certainly, because I mean, like, you could ignore like, oh, that person's upset, I'm going to let them have their space. James is like, oh, this is my time to shine. I'm going to go out, and so he's seeking in the sense of like, if he comes upon a situation, he's happy to step in and do his James Baxter thing. But I agree. I mean, here's the thing though. What an incredible purpose. What an incredible thing to know, like, this is your thing. This is why you're here on Earth, to do this specific thing, because you have this special gift of just positive energy that allows you to cheer people up. And I don't know. I think there's something really admirable about that, especially as we're getting a little bit older and we're thinking of our careers, and like, does your career define you? Like, what is it that defines you? Well, are you speaking spiritual like purpose? Like, there's so many aspects to that. And
there's
James
a lot
like,
of
this is
aspects of that. Well, I think it's multifaceted. And I'd like to, in the rest of our discussion too, that like consider that James Baxter is the character, but also call like the James Baxter like a noun at this point. So like, find your James Baxter. What is your James Baxter?
Can you give me your James Baxter? I'm so curious.
No, well, I think it's some part of it, and here's like kind of the two-faceted part. I think it's something that, one, it's like kind of what you do that's you do best and naturally, and then you would do it honestly if nobody was watching. Like, it's kind of who you are. Like, what's that aspect? And then also that, like, so it's you being the best version of yourself, and then also kind of it's kind of the second facet of it, but like also what makes other people happy. So that's kind of the two faceted. Like, how can you be your best unapologetically yourself, and how do you make that so natural that it also spreads happiness to other people? And I think that, now, I'm not going to say, oh, here's my James Baxter, I've got it nailed down. I think that that's just the pursuit of what we're going after.
I got you.
You know what I mean? I don't know if anybody can necessarily. That's why James Baxter is such a lovable character. Is he's just nailed this down to a T. And I think deep in all of our hearts and mindsets that we're like, wow, I want to find that in me. Exactly what Finn and Jake do. We want and have this human desire to like not only find something unique to us that makes us unique, but also for that thing to go outside of ourselves. You know what I mean? But it's really hard to find,
I think it's interesting. I mean, I looked to, so I was curious. I did a little bit of research on charisma, because I do think that's the thing that James has. I mean, other than the standing on a beach ball, that's incredible, right? So, and we could talk about channeling your charisma through a medium. James Baxter channels his charisma that he has through the act of
Do you
dancing on a
have
beach ball.
a direct like definition, like a Webster's dictionary
Sort of
charisma
not
definition?
really. Here's the thing. So according to, some slight Google search, Christianity is kind of the origin of the word charisma. I mean, charisma and spiritual gifts come in all different forms and varieties. It's not like Christianity like created.
Yeah, I would have
charisma,
pinned it on something more
right?
like Hindi or like Buddhist or something.
Yeah, but even just the act of having charisma, I'm sure the idea has been around for forever, but in Christianity, it has Greek origins. And charisma was more along the lines of a spiritual gift. So what I have written down is of Greek origin, the word charisma was originally used in Christian context to reference a gift or power bestowed upon an individual by the Holy Spirit for the good of the church. So it was truly a like almost evangelical, like you have charisma, it's your spiritual gift, you're going to go out and you have the ability to like make other people Christians, sort of a thing. But then of course now modern day, it's much more of a socially applied thing. Rizz, you have
the Rizz, yeah,
the Rizz, it's
the newest way of putting it. So
it's socially applied. It has so much more of just like general applications nowadays for anyone that's like a leader or whatever. I mean, I don't need to explain that. We all know what charisma is. But it's interesting because like we could dive even deeper. I don't think we need to, but the opposite of Sir Horse Lord James Baxter, Rizz King, is a very narcissistic person who's using that charisma in a manipulative way, and that's not James at all. And I certainly don't want to spend too much time on that, but charisma in my mind is a real life superpower. Like there aren't many like legit superpowers, but I think charisma really is one that certain people just have this natural ability. And I've certainly been very jealous of those people throughout my life, and unfortunately, it's something that I think I see very highly. Like, I think it's awesome when people just have this natural, like gift of gab or whatever it is, like a gift of charisma. And I was wondering though, let's take it with a James Baxter context. Is there anyone in your life, Ned, who just has like the most positive charisma and doesn't approach, because I do think positive charisma could approach at like an insincere level, but do you have anyone that you feel is just like,
there's like obvious ones. Like I think especially the most obvious we think about is somebody who's very extroverted that people surround. And my good buddy Connor is a great example of that. He is the AKA the Dooley of like our friend group. He's always kind of the one making plans. People always do want to hang out with him. People want to like, when they know him, they want to get to know him better. And so he's got that very much that extroverted aspect of it. But I do think that it goes beyond that. I think, yes, it is there are aspects of it that become natural. Like some people are just naturally very charismatic. But I think that there is kind of like what Finn and Jake are doing. You can't just like copy someone else's charisma. You can't just go, I want to be like that person if that's not your natural thing. So it's like, it can be very forced, and that's kind of what Finn and Jake do. They do dissect it a lot. They do the research, they do the sound research, they do video playback, but they nail it down to appeal to a small audience, a couple of audience members, but not to, this weird Dia de Muerto dead guy, Yeah. So that's kind of I think an important concept that I think everybody has their own charisma. It just can look very different. So like,
I agree.
Good example would be like, maybe I don't have the exact same charisma as that super, extroverted person that everybody wants to be around. But if I can unapologetically lean on my own talents, the things that interest me, the things that I know factoids about, be really confident in that. And again, not like you said, not in a narcissistic way that it's like, I want people to like me, more of like, I'm just going to do this because I love it. And I think if you do that long enough, again, you end up around the people that appreciate it the most. And then you're charismatic in your whole own unique way too.
Certainly. Yeah, I think, the way I approached this was more on like what is it that makes like Kurt Cobain or, like, I don't know. I don't want to use
but
a political example. George Washington has this charisma. What is it that, and I broke it down to like 4 different things in my mind, and really kind of a 5th element. So, and of course, I'm thinking everybody has these to different degrees, but the popular kid. Why is the popular kid popular? Quote unquote, right? Like, not that that's a good thing, and not that we should have popularity contests. And Ned's got a really good point of like, find your own thing, find your own people. Yes, but number one in my mind, attractiveness, and these are not like in any specific order, but attractiveness, and I'm putting like parentheses, tall and good looking. I think those are like, for whatever reason, tall has a perception of power, and then good looking, like, unfortunately, to some degree.
I mean,
good looking people have an advantage.
I agree and disagree with you, but continue.
So I think good looking people have an advantage in life. There's just like a natural, like, as far as charisma, being outgoing, having people like you, getting whatever the job, blah, blah, blah. Intelligence is the second element. And then in parentheses, talent and knowledge. I think you can utilize both of those things to display charisma. And as I mentioned earlier with James Baxter, having a medium through which your talent or your intelligence like shows itself is like the way of being charismatic. Like Finn and Jake in this episode, they're using Jake as a trumpet and also kind of stealing the volleyball or the beach ball thing to display their newfound talent or charisma. Power is number 3, with money and influence. And then confidence is number 4. And I was going to say, not to the point of perceived insincerity, because of course you need whoever you're around to think, oh, this person is charismatic and real, and that's why I love them, sort of a thing. And then the 5th element that is kind of can be either 100% one way or 100% the other way is mystery. I do think an element of unknowing is incredible for charisma, but then the complete opposite could also be true, where you go, oh, I know so much, they're so real, they're so like open, and that can also be very charismatic feeling. So in my mind, those 5 elements, attractiveness, intelligence, power, confidence, and mystery, kind of play into like a person's charisma.
And I agree with you to a certain extent, to where I would say that that's, I think, the most obvious. And I think that's what people like look for. And again, kind of like what society's norms are of going, a charismatic person is defined as this. And I think you hit the hammer on the head there. But it doesn't mean that, like, there are aspects of kind of your breakdown that are subjective there too. And that's what I think is showed out through Finn and Jake, is like that there might be somebody out there that doesn't like James Baxter's vibe, look, name. It's surprising, but it appeals to the masses, but still subjectively, somebody might not like James Baxter. You know what I mean? So
everybody loves James Baxter, Ned. You're speaking craziness.
But even in your breakdown, like you said, tall, rich, has a talent and a medium. But like, okay, let's say someone's tall with long golden locks and drives a Mercedes and plays the guitar. But what if you are that, and like that makes you charismatic, but then still there's somebody out there that's like, hey, actually, I like short hair, people my height, and people that are humble, and they don't,
generalities, right?
So there's a subjectiveness that person may be charismatic, but it not be
everybody's cup of tea.
Everybody's cup of tea. Yeah, you know what I mean?
But you still have Led Zeppelin. You still have the Beatles. Like, you still have...
But there's people that don't like the Beatles. There's people that don't like Led Zeppelin.
But the vast majority of people do. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, they were the most popular band in the world for a reason, right? Like, because of their charisma. Like,
and that's where I think...
you could say that about any, like character. So I mean, any controversial person, Joe Rogan, there's something about Joe Rogan that is charismatic that people love or people hate, and that's just how it goes. And
that's where I would take your number 4, the confidence aspect of that, and not put that as I'd put that as more of the umbrella over everything of kind of the traits that you listed that are typically have like very stereotype subjectivity of like the majority of the charisma can be tall people. The majority of the people that are charismatic have a lot of money. But the overarching thing, I think, is the confidence level there. That charisma is somehow tied with unapologetic. Like you would be doing that with or without an audience. And I think that confidence level is charisma. Like you would be owning your height. You'd be like completely content with having exactly how much money you have right now, and completely content with and you would be doing your talents because you love them. And I think that confidence in that one thing is what slowly builds that charisma to where you're so confident with it that all the masses are like, that's actually what we love about it, is that you're so confident in doing your unique thing. And that's where the charisma comes off. Yeah.
Like we're almost getting into other characters too, or characteristics as well, you know? Cause certainly like, I mean, I love the like, what is it? Self-made man, or even just someone, I think I've talked about it in the past on the podcast, the self-made, I can't remember what it is, something like your own marathon, doing your own marathon for yourself. Like you've got the talent to run a marathon. You've got like the physical fitness to run a marathon. You put in the time to practice for it, and you go out and you just do it, and you don't post about it. You don't like sign up for a race. You just do a marathon. And that's like its own form of charisma, which would be seen at a much smaller scale. You know, and that's, I mean, honestly, like I prefer that in my opinion, you know, but I can't help but look at, you know, I mean, I keep saying rock stars because it's just such an obvious example of usually attractive people that are very talented, that have something unique about them, and they tap into medium.
That.
Yeah. They tap into that through a medium of music that makes people just want to like fall in love with them or whatever.
And I think, it's a formula, that there's formulaic aspects to defining your charisma and just going. And I think that nailing it all down is being like, I'm going to follow that formula, whether or not people like it. And that has to be kind of like the final weld that like puts it all together, you know?
Yeah. And let's use this episode as a great kind of come back into the episode a little bit.
Yeah.
James Baxter in the field, Jake compares him to shredding on a guitar.
Yeah.
You know, like you got to shred your own solo, which goes into what you were saying earlier, Ned. Certainly, like you have to find that thing that makes you unique and charismatic, and people will follow that in your own niche. Like, I feel like we've found a cool niche in an Adventure Time podcast world that isn't a thing that many people have done.
And that what's cool is, again, like we would be doing, it helps when we have, you know,
some people
that give us feedback, and fans and people that say we appreciate what you're doing. It helps us continue to do that. I think we would still be doing it if we didn't have that. You know what I mean? Probably it'd be a little harder, but that's kind of the thing, is just like we're doing it for the love of the game. You know what I mean?
Now, Ned, I do want to go and just say, let's bring it into the Adventure Time context. Finn and Jake, the first thing that they thought was, we got to copy.
Got to go do it. Exactly.
We got to copy the voice. I need you to copy. What is your James Baxter voice? What is, and if you do your I Love It You Guys voice, I'm quitting the podcast.
But,
I'm done. If you do that voice, I'm done. That can't be it.
I think, I mean, like I have a lot of like different little voices.
What is your James Baxter, Ned?
It'd probably be that one.
Better not be that voice. It better not be. Do it.
Well, you're putting me on the spot too much, because I have too many other like weird little voices. No, I'm not doing it. Not going to do it, Russell. You're putting me too much on the spot. Nope. You're like 1, 2, 3. Again,
you should have just done it. You should have just done
greatness.
it. And then I would have quit. I would have fake quit.
Greatness.
Can't force greatness.
Can't force greatness. You're trying to put me in You're trying to put me in the Institute of Sound.
The Institute is so on, dude. I was gonna also have you stand up and give me your action, your feel good body action, as they put it in this episode, because they gotta, what is that thing? They're missing the standing on the beach ball. They need that feel good body action. Ned, I wanted to see what your feel good body. This is not a visual medium,
pelvic thrusting to house music.
That's so good. Yeah, that's
Jersey
good.
Shore style fist pumping.
Oh, dude, man, t-shirt time. I used to love Jersey Shore. What a shame.
T-shirt time. What is that?
T-shirt time was what Pauly D, I think his name was, DJ Pauly D.
I did not watch enough Jersey Shore.
And they would go put on their like t-shirt, their going out t-shirt, you know.
Yeah.
Wow, this is the worst tangent.
This is the worst.
Sorry, y'all.
No, but it's Yeah, I like. I wanted to break down the Institute of Sound because
Yeah,
you're
please.
a more of a musician than I am. I play guitar and I'm not great. I feel like this would be your heaven.
Oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Here's my issue. I'm not a tech guy, and that's been one of my biggest flaws in being a drummer was that I spent all my time, and maybe this is a good thing, but all my time crafting my skills, like focusing on practicing all that stuff. Not enough time on experimenting with different sounds, different equipment, different tunings, all that stuff. And so I always felt like I lacked the perfect drum set to make me sound as good as I could be, because my mindset was if I practice, I can make a bad drum set sound amazing, which I do think I could do to a degree.
Yeah,
certainly. But I do wish I had spent more time crafting the like technical skills, and that's what the Institute of Sound would have taught me, because they got half stacks, they got full stacks, they got distortion pedals. I mean, it's an incredible place, and I got to say, I love studio days. I've spent, I think I've done like 3 or 4 different recording sessions as a high school and then as a college drummer and bands, and I loved getting in the studio.
Oh, and just
breaking down what you're doing.
That,
having a producer who's like not a part of the band, but like understands the band dynamic and understands like the family thing, and is just like helping y'all like craft the best song that you can. And I've had some bad studio experiences, like I'd say 2 of the 3 of them were not that great because of technical issues or whatever. But dude, I love studio time, and my tops of the episode is probably got to be the Institute of Sound, and my sexy character as well is for sure the full-bodied afro, whatever that
I don't even
is.
know what they are. They could be,
there's a bunch of them.
They're inside of trees, so I'm like, are they like monkeys?
They're so 70s.
Is it actually hair?
Their hair goes all the way down to their body. That's what I thought. I was like, it's just an afro that just continues, and that's why they're awesome producers. I guess. I don't know.
I love this. The whole aspect of this as an introduction into this episode, I think is really cool, because I do also going on the fact that it's about James Baxter, this animator. And this is such a huge part of the episode. I could think from the writer's room perspective is that we've got this animator. It's why James Baxter like looks a little cleaner animated than the rest of the characters in Adventure Time. And I think that, we have our deep breakdown kind of about the charisma stuff and what that all means in the larger scope of life. I think the writers, and specifically adding the Institute of Sound as part of this episode, are making a point as to like good animation / good TV shows and movies and entertainment, that if you copy somebody else, it can be like really great. Some people can enjoy it. Some people will see it as a copy. It's really hard to copy somebody else, and it takes time. It takes like a lot of learning, a lot of watching playback on your screens. But when something is organically created, like what James Baxter isms, it's not formulaic. It's not scientific. It's not something, because they're sitting there with the whole like circuitry layout of the sound, and they're like, let's put this thing here. We got to turn the volume up. We got to turn the volume down. But James Baxter's just doing it OG, and I think they're kind of making a nod to James Baxter, the animator in real life, that like whatever he's doing, he's breaking ground. He's OGing it. He's doing this awesome animation stuff.
Yeah.
And that cool. Adventure Time and TV shows in general can copy stuff. But I think also the animators of Adventure Time are going, well, we want to do our own thing. We want us to have this original James Baxter-ness, and that we aren't going to follow some sort of animator's scientific formula. But that's why I really loved that. Like I think that seems more important than it lets off, No,
I think that's a really great take on it. That's completely different than how I like walked away from that scene. So I'm excited to get to talk about what I took away from that.
Yeah, because are you taking away that, some of it is formulaic, or like?
Well, certainly I'm taking away that like art stems from art, right? Like there is no complete original idea. There's ideas where, and a great example of this perhaps could be, I mean, I love Led Zeppelin. I've talked about them earlier a little bit. Greta Van Fleet, right, is like a band that stole, like I
stole
almost
their
had
sound or something.
stole
like
their
that,
sound.
yeah.
Like I almost had the ability because of my job to potentially sign them to an admin deal at the publishing company I work for forever ago, and it didn't happen because the guys in LA said, we have Zeppelin, like we're not interested in this. And
Yeah,
then
we're not interested
Greta
in
Van
like a
Fleet became the
copycat.
cool thing.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's not an original sound. Yeah, they're taking a thing, but Led Zeppelin also stole so much from like blues, like 40s, 30s blues riffs. And then they put that whole first Led Zeppelin album is just like practically copyright infringement, you know, but not entirely. And so yeah, I kind of took the scene and I was like, man, I love when they look at that board and Finn and Jake are like, oh, I'm doing this double. I'm taking this and moving it over here. Like that's me as a drummer. I was like looking at song structure and I was like, how can we make the song more unique outside of verse, chorus, you know, like bridge, chorus? What else can we do to make it better, sort of a thing? And so I love that. I just love the creative process. And it made me think a little bit of like how unique everybody's creative process is. I wonder, Ned, if you've ever had like creating music or whatever. What is your creative process that you go through in order to create music? I mean,
I feel like, well, and just create it has to be, you have to always get a little bit of the experience and outside influence to spark creativity, to spark passion. Like, you have to have listened to other music or really like blues music to learn how to play it, to kind of be the foundation of that kind of thing. But if you lack the ability to, like look at that board and be like, not just use the pieces in front of you, but you have to open your mind up a little bit and be like, okay, I've got all these things to found like foundational, not let me put them in a different order and turn one up and turn one down, and then that becomes my thing. You have to take that bass, somehow melt it down a little bit, and then open your mind to be like, what just kind of openly flows out of that? How am I feeling? So like almost like training yourself on things you're passionate about, but then still having something that kind of flows out that's organic and natural, and go, of course I was influenced by stuff, but I don't want to recreate. I don't want to be Led Zeppelin. I don't have a desire to be that, but I like their music or something. You know what I mean?
I even was curious on the level of like how the song specifically is created, right? How that like thing that you're going creative or artistically making to become your act or whatever it is created. And I couldn't help but think of like all these different examples of like what the creative process looks like for certain people. For my high school band and my high school band, it was jamming. And we would come up with a song through jamming. My college band singer would bring a song to us. Some of my favorite, like, the Beatles documentary that came out on HBO, I think it was, where they're like sitting there and you see Paul McCartney create Get Back like within 7 minutes. It's like one of the most
I've seen that clip,
incredible clips. Like I just was blown away by that. I mean, another great example is like Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, obviously one of my favorite bands. Anthony Kiedis would keep a poem of a journal of poems, and he, you know, basically gave it to Rick Rubin, who was producing Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and said, here's my book of poems, whatever, like not thinking anything of it. Rick flips through it. You know, they're in the middle of recording and already like at the studio. Like I would be so nervous making a song at the studio. I've never been signed to a label that would pay for that. Certainly, you know, enough time they were there for like a month in a house, like a haunted mansion is where they recorded that in California. And essentially Rick Rubin was like, oh, I love this poem. It's speaking to me. And every other poem I think that Anthony to that day had used had been a rap that he had written for the purpose of having a melody and that sort of a thing. And so they took this poem that he had, they brought it to John Frusciante, the guitar player. John went away for X amount of time, came back with that like incredible. You know, I love how different the creative process can be created, how like music can be created or whatever it is. So like starkly different. And then every other Chili Pepper song is just like them jamming and Anthony just like, you know, be bopping over top of it until he comes up with something about California. Exactly. It's great. It's so great. But yeah, so I really enjoyed that scene. I really enjoyed the creative process, watching them, they scrubbed through like their clip, which is such a unique way of creating something as well as filming yourself and then reviewing that film to see, because you're going to critique yourself so heavily.
I mean, it's what we did with this podcast, man. The very much our first season, we spent a lot of time listening back through it and being like, well, what are we missing? What sounds weird? What sounds awkward? And training and learning. And again, I think we started with going, okay, we listen to other podcasts. What are they doing that works? What are they doing that makes them popular?
Yeah, we're just podcast fans or whatever. Yeah.
And then over time, once we got trained and learned enough, that we kind of created our own formula itself. Again, we didn't want to just take all of the notes that someone else wrote and just like put them in a different order.
And that's what they're doing, right? They're
exactly
finding their own thing. But even in the studio, right, they're like experimenting and constantly learning until they go, oh, we got it. We know our thing. And there's got to be a moment, I think, with any creative process where you go, we got to stop. Like, you can't keep going with the creative process because you're going to drive yourself mad and never release a book. Cough, cough, Kingkiller Chronicles. Please, come on, just release the third book. You already have it written. What are you doing, Patrick Rothfuss? Anyways.
But what's that like, I guess analysis by paralysis or paralysis by analysis, that like you can take something that's great and then like keep going and keep trying to formulate and then it just makes it sound worse or makes it be worse, or like you're over it. Like now you're not doing it for the right reasons. It becomes not organic if you're just trying to like keep taking the wheel and making it better. It's perfect as it is,
Yeah. So man, I mean, I think we've analyzed charisma and songwriting a whole lot. I want to bring a different opinion toward the end here. You may have more factoids and stuff, but I have a theoretically speaking about Sir James Baxter, Rizz King Horse Lord, the first of his name, Sir James Baxter.
Okay, what's your theoretically speaking?
My theoretically speaking is that James is magic. He doesn't actually have this special charisma that we've been talking about so much. His bit isn't actually that powerful at all. Instead, it's his wizardry. You see him dancing on this beach ball, moving his hands in a very, I mean, you could also compare this to a Jar Jar Binks theory in a sense, but he's wizarding as he's moving his hands. It's how he applies it. And it comes off as charismatic, but really it's just him dancing, doing spells, and it's because of his wizard madness that he can only say his name. That's my James Baxter theory.
That he is in this world of wizards, or it's one of a great theory would be like it's Magic Man, and Magic Man's so crazy.
Magic Man's dressed up like a horse.
That he thinks that he's like manipulating people, but actually he's just like going around like making everybody happy. And he's like, aren't I so diabolical? I'm making everybody happy, not by their own choice. That would be a funny theory too.
Energy? Does James Baxter and Magic Man have a similar energy?
In terms of
there's just something
positivity.
About them.
Yeah, I
guess I don't know. There's something about that might be my house canon. I might think that James Baxter is really Magic Man.
No, well, we'll have that episode later that will kind of shut down the house canon. Until then, that can be house canon.
Okay. Well, my theory right now, as the guy who's never seen the show before, is that James Baxter is a magic wizard.
Yeah, I want some of our fans there, if we're scratching an itch with that statement, to try to get some other like weird what do you call them, like graph charts with red yarn over and be like give us the red yarn chart of why Magic Man is James Baxter.
Oh, dude, that would take so much time, but I love that idea. If that's possible.
Let's trace this back to like season 1.
Dude, we could just make a YouTube video just like BSing our way around that. And
exactly, like pulling on fake stuff. Like, where's Magic? Totally. And we've only gotten 3 or 4 Magic Man episodes. Mm-hmm. But more James. Once we get the history of James Baxter,
I think we've got 2 that I know of. Magic Man episodes.
Yeah.
Although he does appear at the beginning of one of them, but regardless, yeah, that's my theory. So
I like that. I like that a lot, though. That, but going back to, we'll have this discussion all over again. So I don't want to beat a dead horse, pun intended, on the charisma thing, but we'll end up reopening this can of worms on the second James Baxter episode too.
Okay.
But this is a fun one. I liked the fact that this seems like really cool, real world applicable. And again, just take it back to this is why I like Adventure Time, because you can take things like this in a silly episode about a horse, and it does kind of open up bigger cans of worms about good conversation, and also just what the animators were probably doing a lot of this on purpose to kind of be like,
oh yeah,
what's magic about James Baxter? Like, what's charismatic? What's magic? What makes people happy? You know,
I love this is such a silly idea for an episode. Let's run with it and do it. Like, that is what Adventure Time does best, in my opinion, is what a dumb idea for an episode. I love it. Let's make it happen.
Oh, it's so great, man.
What is your lesson for this episode?
My lesson is, like, always be in pursuit of your James Baxter.
Okay.
I think that's just a good way. It's like I said, I'm going to make it a noun, but like whatever he's doing, your passion, something that you love unapologetically and makes other people happy. Like, be on the lookout for that and always be honing in what that is and perfecting that, you know?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it really is basically the same thing I put. I was thinking, like, go out of your way to make someone else happy this week, or just in general, right? Like,
that's a good one.
Do it, expect nothing in return, just the desire to love on somebody and walk away and just like, yeah, I don't know. It makes me think of, I love giving directions to people because that's such a like easy thing to do and it's so helpful. I don't know. So
that regardless, like helping others should not be transactional. Somebody. That untransactionally help somebody this week or make somebody feel good,
Yeah, don't go chase little girls into alleyways screaming your name and making weird faces.
Yes. And that's, I mean, it expands upon that. When you don't do it right and you're like, again, trying to something that you're not good at to try to make people happy, it's gonna like be upsetting, like, if you're not good at throwing parties and you throw a party for somebody and it sucks, like, don't be surprised. Like, they're like, hey, that's not my natural gift that I should be trying to hone in on. That's like what other people do,
Yeah, dude, great episode. I loved learning about James Baxter, and honestly, it's like I knew it would. It sparked a good conversation. I love episodes that just make you think, make you want to learn.
Get down to the juicy nugget of our little soul, Russell.
Well,
juicy soul nuggets.
If you want to hear me and Ned not thinking, and you want to hear me and Ned just being me and Ned, and by me I mean Russell Tyndall, then you can check out our Patreon, patreon.com/neverendingadventure podcast. We're going to be talking after this episode about injuries, sports injuries.
Yeah, worst injuries, sports injuries. Yeah, I have had some too.
It'll be a good conversation. I mean, this is flowed lovingly, so I'm hoping that will as well. It will. Check us out on Instagram at Never Ending Podcast, TikTok at Never Ending Adventure Cast, Twitter at NEA_podcast. Email us your thoughts, your opinions. Get on the Traveler's Log. I say it every week, but please write us. I love the Traveler's Log. It's one of my favorite things. NEA.travelerslog@gmail.com. Also, if you do a review for the podcast, like on iTunes or Apple Music, or even rate it on Spotify, let us know and we'll still send you a sticker. I'm sorry for those who I owe for Patreon stickers, because if you sign up as a $5 or $10 tier, you also get a NEA and Beyond, which is the podcast for the Patreon sticker.
It's similar to our logo here on Spotify or Apple Music, but it's like Spaceman.
Because we're beyond, brother. If you review this podcast, Never Ending Adventure, we'll send you a sticker from this podcast, the logo of this podcast.
The logo that you're looking at right now.
So. But also, Ned, I'm looking forward to this. I want to know what your rec is of this week, but also, what are you listening to? I'm just, for whatever reason, I just wanted to ask you what you're listening to this week.
Yeah. Well, do you want me to start with one or the other? Or
No, whatever you feel inspired.
Yeah. Well, my rec is simple.
Okay.
We saw a preview for the new movie coming out, and so we went back and watched the trilogy of the newest Planet of the Apes movies. Really enjoyable. A lot more enjoyable than I don't think I ever realized I never saw the third one either. Kind of cheesy, kind of lame, but like it just has that like I'm a teenager, fun action movie vibe. Cool. Like the same that Transformers had, same that, Ready Player One has. It was a good, fun movie, and watched them with my wife last week, and we're like, that was just a fun thing to just kind of get into a little trilogy like that. So that's my rec. What's your rec? And then we'll do listenings.
Yeah. Well, my rec. Well, first off, Ned, I did want to mention me and Allie discuss people that have charisma in our lives, and we both thought of you and Jackie. We're like,
thanks, man.
Ned and Jackie have charisma. They have this thing that make people want to hang out with them. And Nashville are two different friend groups revolved around y'all, and we kind of did TNDC and all that stuff because of you guys. So I think you all have charisma. I think. Shout out to my buddy John Moore. I mean, I think he's a dude who has just crazy positive energy. He's also tall. So
he's also just tall.
I don't want to give him too much credit. He's also very tall. But no, he's got just a lovingly positive energy about him. And I mean, I'm going on his bachelor party. You could just feel that people just are drawn to the dude. It was really cool. Regardless, my rec for this week is a recap rec. So I'm swinging back and going, I watched the full thing. I can tell you what I think about it. Rurouni Kenshin, there's a remake of the original series that's coming out. The season 2 will be out later this fall. And I love Rurouni Kenshin. It's one of my favorite animes from like the, what is it? Toonami days, about the
Wait, and there's a season 2 coming out now?
Well, so they finished it back in the day, and then they're doing a remake of it that's more closely to the manga. And so it's slightly different. It's kind of like the, you're not an anime guy necessarily, Ned, but if you've ever seen Brotherhood, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Full Metal Alchemist was a show that was running with the manga, and then they caught up to the manga, and then they finished it. Kind of like how Game of Thrones did, where it's just like, I don't know,
so
we
they're
made
kind
up
of
the
like
rest
writing
of it.
and producing it simultaneously.
Yeah, so Brotherhood came back and said, we're doing it specifically to the manga, and it was incredible. And Brotherhood's the one that you watch if you're going to watch Full Metal Alchemist. But then Rurouni Kenshin, they did some slight changes. It's pretty to the manga, and they finished it. But then they've brought it back away from 90s animation, more modern animation. And Ali was even saying it's kind of Sojo, which is kind of cool, which is the more slice of life type anime, but in a Shonen Jump anime. So like one thing I love about Rurouni Kenshin is he's a very feminine main character, right? But then he has this side to him where like he goes back into this Batosa the Manslayer. Regardless, awesome show. I love Rurouni Kenshin. And it holds up. It's such a good remake. The voice acting took me away because I'm so attached to the old voice acting. But man, it's so smooth. It's so much more enjoyable for people who didn't fall in love with the original. And my only comment so far is that Freckles, the theme song, you just can't touch that. Freckles is an incredible opening theme song for the original. Regardless, I'm all in on Rurouni Kenshin. I will say, because I need to preface this, creator of Rurouni Kenshin, not a good guy. I hate that I support him by watching Rurouni Kenshin.
Is it like similar to be like, I like Rick and Morty, but Justin Roiland's like a fucker?
Yeah.
Whatever it might be.
Yeah. It is, but it's like worse. It's kind of because of Japanese culture thing. It's a whole, you could Google it. I'm not going to talk about it. I don't want to give them. Yeah, but regardless, it's a great show, and I just, I can't help but love it. And so I had to watch it, and that's where I'm at. Yeah, it kicks my butt in a great way. And we're watching Shogun right now. So that's going to be my new rec that I'll follow up on. I'll let you know what I think about Shogun.
I've had that on my list. I think I'm going to watch it by myself first and see if I like it enough to have Jackie watch it with me too.
It's a lot of subtitles. And someone told me it's like Game of Thrones, but dude, it's not. It's not like Game of Thrones.
Its own thing. I loved it. Like I said, Ghost of Tsushima was one of my favorite video games, and I love the culture and the style and the art and the history of it all. And that's like the exact same time frame from.
You get a lot of that.
Yeah, the last of kind of the samurai culture before Japan was like really altered by the Mongols and the Chinese culture.
So what's interesting is we can talk about this after. I was about to go on what's going on in Shogun. It's like right before the Edo period. If y'all know about Japanese history, I'm pretty sure it's right before the Edo period or right before the I can't remember the name of the shogun who takes over. But regardless, there's like a big period of peace that comes after Shogun, the show. And then the Meiji Revolution, which is actually where Rurouni Kenshin is focused, is like the end of the Edo period into the Meiji period, which is like a more like European style government, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry, I just talked about anime and Japanese history for a little bit there, but
it's all part of it. It's all pieces of our puzzle, man.
It's things we're interested in, you know.
Things we're interested in.
I love it. So,
and that's why I'm like, hey, like if people like want to hear that, we always give a little taste of like how we talk about other topics other than Adventure Time at the end of our episodes, and that's why Patreon's fun too. It's a little bit
100%.
A little bit more unscripted, a little bit more off the cuff, and we come prepared to these podcasts a little bit more. So that's why the Patreon's pretty fun.
Cool. Well, Ned, I mean, party forever.
I love the guys.